Alright, we're going to be going over some Moz wrestling techniques and some ways to win, ways to use your technique here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how we put our feet on the board here. You can put your feet on the board with your heels all the way down on the bottom like what Don has. You can also raise them up for better leverage to really lean back with. You can have your heels up higher on the board, raise your heels up higher. That will make a difference also in how you pull. It'll push you back into your glutes harder. Okay, now for the stick, holding the stick, one person is going to have their hands on the inside and one person is going to have their hands on the outside. The inside grip is your power position. This is going to be where you'll have your most power. When you have your hands on the outside of the stick, that's going to be your leverage position, where you'll be able to leverage your opponent. Each person gets a chance at both, because it's best 2 out of 3 with each opponent to see who wins. So each person will get to go through both ways, so they can try it out for themselves. When you're doing your power position, you're basically going to be, go ahead and grab the stick, Dylan. So one thing to note also, when you grab the stick, your hands can't touch, and the person who has the leverage position can't have their hands all the way at the end. They have to have them in a little bit. Even with a person with big hands, they have to have them in a little bit, and the hands can't touch. There's got to be some space in between. So when you have your power position, your first move when you pull, one thing you want to remember is when you have the stick, you want long arms. You don't ever want to pull with your arm power. It's just like a deadlift. Straight, long arms. You're going to pull with your back and your hips to begin with, and you're going to push into the board like a leg press. Your first position when you pull back is you want to pull your scapula back like this, so it gets your back involved. Okay, you don't want to try to pull back with your low back. I see people that do it like this, and they're being stretched out, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on the low back. You want to try to pull back with your scapula first, if you can, and you're going to keep pulling back like that throughout the match. So the power position, you're basically just going to pull back, scoot your hips behind you, and just pull as hard as you can backwards. Okay, now we're going to talk about the leverage position. This is going to be hard on the hands too, so that's just get used to it when you're Moz wrestling. Okay, so now we're going to look at the leverage position, so having the hands on the outside. When your hands are on the outside, the advantage to this is that your hands are seated more like a deadlift. They're a little bit wider like you would on a deadlift. But the advantage is you can twist the stick in your opponent's hand. Now, you don't just want to twist it, because that's not going to do anything. You want to, when you start to pull, when you start to twist the stick in that direction, you also want to pull in that direction. You pull your body back towards that direction. So whatever way, if the stick is going up like this, you're going to be pulling with that hand harder in that direction. So if I pull this, if I rotate to my right, then I'm going to be pulling as hard as I can with my left to try to open up my opponent's arms there. If I pull the opposite direction, same thing. I'm going to try to open up my opponent's arm there to make it harder for her to hold on, or to make it harder for the opponent to hold on to the stick. And then I'm going to pull in that direction. Go ahead and let go. I'm going to pull in that direction like this. I'm going to pull in that direction like this, because if I'm going to rotate the stick, I want to pull back toward the way I'm rotating, toward that shoulder that I'm rotating towards. That gives me more leverage and gives them less leverage. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about walking the board, and I'm going to have Dawn walk the board. I'm going to be in the power position, and she's going to have me in the leverage position. So when she pulls me to one side, whichever one she decides to pull to, she can start pulling me, and the advantage to this is she can pull me off balance like this, and so I automatically lose. So there's a few ways to win. One of them is pulling your opponent off balance like that. If you pull an opponent's foot off the board by pulling them off balance like that, you win. You can also pull the opponent over and then rip the stick out of their hand. Those are the other 2 ways to win. But that's a technical way of winning. The technical way of winning is pulling them off balance, and that's when you're going to get into more exciting matches. Just watching somebody rip somebody over the top or pull the stick out of their hand, it can be exciting if they're battling it out for a while, but but that usually happens quick. Ripping it out of somebody's hands or pulling them over usually is those are quick matches. They don't really last that long. The exciting ones are when somebody's using technique, like they're trying to leverage them off of one leg. So those are a few ways that you can win, and those are a few techniques that you can practice when you're Moz wrestling. But the thing is, you got to put your practice in. So if you're going to practice Moz wrestling, you don't need to go full blast every time. You can go 50, 75, 80% efforts and practice these techniques, so that way when you do have a real match, you have a better chance and understanding of the leverages and the pulls in this sport, so you have a better chance of winning. All right, that's it.